Welcome to episode number 277 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. We are recording live on YouTube on July 27, 2019. You can find us online by searching for us just search for Beyond Social Media Show. This week, we have a ton of things to talk about, as usual, including hacked seal, breaking expectations, secret AI, DEA database, AI portraiture, emerging careers, second acts, retro Spotify, boxed wine and cheese, influence scams, Gabbard's Gimmick, and a lot more. BL, you kick it off with the best story of the week. What do you got?
Well, what's best about this story is that it became an internet-wide mystery, and then the Washington Post solved it. And it's a story about how democracy needs good journalism. So what happened was that on Tuesday, the president made a speech at Turning Point USA Student Summit. And in many ways, it mirrored the production style that was similar to all of his rallies, where they have a big movie about him beforehand and how fabulous he is. And then he comes out and the presidential seal is behind him. Only in this case, there were two presidential seals, one on either side of the screen, and one of them was fake. And nobody noticed. It was up there for more than an hour. And so what happened was that on closer examination, there were alterations. And the seal was, nobody claimed to know who created it. But on Thursday morning, a conservative group, the Turning Point, said they fired the low-level employee, the old fire the intern thing, who was responsible for displaying it. So I tweeted when I saw the fake seal to begin with, I said, oh my God, I hope it's a member of the resistance. And as it turned out, it was. And so the person who created it was Charles Lazat. He's a graphic designer. He's a former Republican. He voted for Bush twice, but he couldn't stay a Republican with Trump in office. And he made this seal as a joke that was going to go to people he knew. And he made a little website for the seal. He said, it's just a goofy thing. For some people I knew, I had no idea it would blow up like this. So what he did was he substituted the arrows in the eagle's claw for a set of golf clubs, because that's Trump's favorite thing to do. And he swapped the olive branch for a wad of cash. And he replaced the United States e pluribus unum, I don't know.
E pluribus unum.
Yes. He replaced that with a Spanish insult, and the Spanish insult, 45 est un titier, means 45 is a puppet. And so the Russian eagle, which on the Russian seal, the eagle, there are two of them. They're facing each other. So instead of the one that's on the presidential seal, there were two. And he wakes up Wednesday morning, and there's a Reddit group talking about the chaos that was happening. And you know, they found his fake seal. Well, anyhow, chaos followed. The media came and everything else. And so, but Lazat says, whoever did that knew exactly what they were doing, because you had to look for it to find it. It's been out there since 2016. He thinks the person did it intentionally. He said it's a load of crap that it was an accident. There's no way this is an accident, is all I'm saying. So when the Post published the story that saying nobody knew, everybody went looking. And when it was found, all the shirts sold out immediately. And he said, I've got to be honest, I'm so tickled the most petty way possible that the president of the United States, whom I despise, stood up and gave a talk in front of this graphic. Whoever put that up is my absolute hero. And you know what? Mine too.
So I saw reports that the person who did put it up had been fired, but no reporting on who actually put it in the display behind the wall that he was giving a speech to. So
we hope that person comes forward.
Yeah, I'm curious about finding out who that person is.
Well, stay tuned.
Yeah. So I came across this while I was scrolling through my LinkedIn feed the other day, And I wanted to share it because it's just insanely creative. It was from a post by a guy named David Syme or Simi. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that name. This person is a virtual augmented reality specialist. I'm not connected to this person. I don't know why it showed up in my feed, but it did, and I'm glad it did. So I'm scrolling through my LinkedIn feed and come across this video that displays an ocean tide that is rushing, and it just caught my eye because it's, you know, it's an ocean and everything, and it's ocean water, though, but the water was overflowing the frame of the LinkedIn social post. So it was a tide coming in, but the tide's water flowed over and onto like user reactions at the bottom of
How'd they do that?
the post. I don't know. It came over the view count, it came over the likes and the comments, the share button, over the user comment, but it was just a cleverly designed video that appeared to look like an actual LinkedIn post. So the video was created by a guy named Tim Gray, who's a motion graphic designer. In the actual post where David Syme shared the video, he commented, and this is comment captures it perfectly. Now, to get noticed, it's vital to stand out. So try and make sure you always present your business in a way that surprises and breaks with people's expectations. This beautiful piece from Tim Gray perfectly demonstrates the power of different. And so, you know, the reason it caught my eye was the motion, but when I looked, I was captivated by the fact that it was, you know, it broke my expectations of what a LinkedIn post is supposed to look like. So we'll share that, and we'll embed the video in the show notes so you can take a look at it. But it's brilliant.
How clever.
Yeah.
Wow, that really is brilliant. So this is sort of a cautionary tale. This is about AI that the creators have decided is too dangerous to release, and it's reminiscent in a way of the story about the physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who created the first atomic bomb. And when he saw the first one explode, he regretted what he had made. And he said at that time, and I have a link to the video where he said that. He said, "I remembered the line from Hindu scripture, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." And his resistance to continuing to work on the atom bomb cost him his job, and he was labeled as a communist. He was blacklisted. He never worked again. In this case, the creators realize before they release it that they've made something that could be incredibly dangerous, and they feel like they have to figure out how it can be harnessed before they can release it. So this is like a problem waiting to happen. So it's a revolutionary AI system. It's called GPT-2, and it can write incredibly realistic news stories and features and works of fiction. And it's so good that the risk of malicious use is so high that they feel like they have to have more time to discuss the ramifications. So basically it's a text generator, but it's pushing the boundaries of what anybody thought was possible in terms of the quality of the output, which there's an example of in the article that's mind-blowing, and the wide variety of ways it can be used. So for example, you feed it the first line of George Orwell's 1984 or the lead of a Guardian story about Brexit, and it completely writes credible, plausible passages that match the originals in style and subject. And it was trained on a data set of more than 10 million articles. And the whole thing about AI is the training and how deep that is. And they pick the articles that I find really weird. They pick the articles they train it on by trolling a Reddit site. And so the collection of text is 40 gigabytes, enough to store about 35,000 copies of Moby Dick, and that's the database. And so by structuring the way that the text is input, it can also do translation and summarizing, and it can pass simple reading comprehension tests, often performing better than AIs that have been built for just those reasons. And they say there are so many people better than us at thinking of what it can do maliciously. And so we're not saying we know the right thing to do. We're not laying down the line and saying this is the way. We want to develop more rigorous thinking here. We're trying to build the road as we travel across it. This is scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's admirable that they are thinking about potential misuse of it and being cautious with the release of what they've created. But I kind of think that whether they released or not, somebody's going to have
Somebody
this
will.
technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So another depressing story. This is this is actually good because it's an excellent example of another excellent example of Washington Post data journalism. The newspaper has gained access to the Drug Enforcement Administration's automation of reports and consolidated orders system. As a result of a court order. And what that is, basically, the Post teamed with HD Media, which publishes the Charleston Gazette and Mail in West Virginia, and waged a year-long legal battle for access to this database, which contains government and drug industry information that was sought to keep secret. The reason it was they wanted to keep it secret was it's a database that tracks the path of every single pain pill sold in the United States. By manufacturers and distributors to pharmacies in every town and city. So the Post has made it public. They sifted through nearly 380 million transactions from 2008 to 2012 and analyzed shipments of oxycodone and hydrocodone pills, which account for 3/4 of the total opioid pill shipments to pharmacies. So they've made the data publicly available by county and state levels to help the public understand the impact of these pill shipments on their communities. The records provide a look at the surge of legal pain pills and obviously the fueling the prescription opioid epidemic. And that epidemic resulted in nearly 100,000 deaths during the 7-period time frame that they looked at. So you can look up your own county and download the raw data. I did that for Carver County, which is relatively unscathed by the opioid epidemic. But of course, Carver County includes Chanhassen, where Prince lived, and Prince famously died of opioid overdose.
Boy, that is depressing. But I mean, there's a I don't know if I can call it a larger issue, but there's a big issue here, and that is that there is a pain epidemic. There are a lot of people who are in pain, and there needs to be a better way to deal with it. And that, I don't know if or when that may ever happen, but people don't start out taking opioids just for fun, or most people don't. But apparently, the rate at which you can get addicted is really quick. Like
it is quick. I would take issue with the notion of a pain epidemic. I think we have been in the same level of pain throughout history. I don't think there's all of a sudden, for some reason, a lot more people are in pain. But it's the prescription and the quickness to which you can get addicted. And I think the solution largely is the legalization of marijuana.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to tell you, after my shoulder surgery, that was the only thing that helped. Of course, it was medical marijuana. Okay, so all right, a happier story. We need more stories like this.
Right.
This is about an AI application that turns selfies into these fabulous classical portraits. And this is from a story in The Verge by James Vincent. And it uses an algorithm that's trained on 45,000 classical portraits to render your face in a faux oil, watercolor, or ink. There's huge number of styles, everything from Rembrandt to Van Gogh, and they each put out a very unique portrait. I have not been able to try it because the result was so overwhelming that the site is currently down for maintenance. But certain elements in any selfie will prompt it to use a specific style. So they say that the algorithm decides on the style depending on your facial features, and that if you try a different selfie, you may get different results. And the privacy policy is apparently not one you need to worry about like with FaceApp. So when this comes back, this will definitely be something fun to try.
Yeah, who developed the app is the question.
Oh, well, it's not Russians.
Okay, good. Is it Chinese?
They didn't say.
Gotta ask these questions, Lisa.
You do, don't you?
So this is another very interesting story. This is from the Star Tribune. Kevin Berger is the reporter. Susan Erickson and David Kalachi. It's a feature on these two, this couple here, who are classically educated theater professionals, and they are making their living reading aloud. They are among a prominent and among the most prolific of an emerging form of artist, which is the book narrator or audiobook narrator. They estimate that each of them has narrated more than 500 titles, and they're skilled at using their voices to capture an author's tone, but also have a knack for slipping into vocal cadences demanded by the dialogue. And they use foreign accents, they have regional dialects, they use inflection to build a scene and create distinct characters who argue, cajole over converse, plot, and sometimes fall in love. They began narrating nearly more than 20 years ago when audiobooks were starting to expand from just an audience aimed at those who were visually impaired, but that audience has obviously expanded a great deal due to the release of the internet and audio books. But starting from cassette tapes to where we are now, where Audible is a big business, is pretty impressive. It is the fastest growing sector of publishing. Audiobooks are, according to Audio Publishers Association. U.S. sales jumped to 2.5 billion in 2017, which was a 23% hike over the previous year and the 6th year of double-digit growth. So audiobooks are no longer an afterthought. They used to be released after the publication of a book went through its printed publication life cycle, and then it was released on cassette tape. Now they're same day publication of a printed book and the audio version of it. So
I was wondering who read all of that. My dad is visually impaired, and he has a machine that comes from the library and it's free. And he listens to the Atlantic and he listens to the New Yorker. And he says like an issue of the Atlantic takes 3 days, to go from cover to cover. But of course he loves to do that because the writing's so good. But I wonder who did that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different versions of it. Like my Echo will read some Kindle books that are formatted to be read by a machine. So it is a mechanical voice that Echo's reading. And then there's the Audible version where it's actually read and recorded by actual human beings. I have listened to several fiction books, and I'm not really good at listening to fiction as an audiobook because my mind tends to wander. And with business books, it's easier to do that and not lose a lot of the content. But fiction books demand your full attention. So, but I listened to a book called Lincoln in the Bordeaux, which was just fabulously done. There's the plot, the point of the premise of the story is Lincoln visits the graveyard where his son is buried, and the story is told from the point of view of all the dead people in the cemetery. And so there's a billion different voices, and they just did a beautiful job of capturing all the different characters of those dead people in the cemetery. Anyway, I go on. What's the next story, BL?
The next story is about MailChimp, which recently rebranded itself as, believe it or not, an entertainment company. Well, they have an entertainment division. So they've teamed up with Vice, and they've created a 5-part series that follows people who've quit their day job to start their own businesses as their second act. So in June, they launched this entertainment division, and the headline on it, that an article by Matt Lopez said, MailChimp is making entertainment, but why not? So they said that they had outgrown their original role, and they introduced a bunch of entertainment projects, including co-productions with a lot of different partners and award-winning directors and producers like Jason Wolnar and Herkesh Hooray. And they have popular talents in there. And so this 5-part series follows 5 people who quit their day job. The first episode follows Paulie G., a New Yorker who spent 30 years in corporate industry before deciding he wanted to open a pizzeria. There are others who include Mary and Deborah Jones, aka the Jones Sisters. They opened a barbecue restaurant to help Deborah's daughter pay her way through college. And then there's Abigail Carroll from Portland, Maine, who worked in finance for her whole career and quit to pursue a life as an oyster farmer. So as for where is MailChimp getting all this money to make these major investments, it brought in $600 million in revenue last year and recently told TechCrunch it's due to bring in $700 million this year. That money comes from 11 million active customers who send more than 1 billion emails every day, and they facilitate more than 1.25 million e-commerce orders every day through marketing campaigns sent through its platform. So it's an interesting second act, and I think it's a fun project that they're doing.
Very cool. This is a fun project as well, or I don't know if it's a project or not, but this is from The Verge's John Porter, who did a post on a concept artist named Sheng Lam, who has reimagined tech brands, what they would look like if they were actually made for a bygone era. And so this is like tech brands, a retro imagination of a tech brand. So Facebook is designed, the imagery for Facebook is of a disk drive and a floppy disk, because you think of Facebook, everything you do on Facebook is recorded, right? Twitter is reimagined as a telegraph key used for sending short Morse code messages. YouTube is a VHS cassette and player. SoundCloud is a portable CD player, and Instagram is a Polaroid camera, of course. But they're just fabulous illustrations. We'll share them, put a link in the show notes so everybody can take a look at them. Very cool.
That's fun. That's a little bit like the AI that turns you into classical portraits.
Yeah.
You know? So this is an absolutely brilliant brand partnership that David Berkowitz pointed out on the Serial Marketers newsletter. There's a company called House Wine, and their wine comes in boxes and cans, and they claim that their wine is as good as any you're going to get in any bar. And so now they have a box that combines wine and Cheez-Its. And the site says they went like hotcakes if hotcakes came with a side of wine and cheese. Missed out? You're not totally corkscrewed. Our expert guide will have you pairing your wines with Cheez-It crackers like a pro. And the blend that was in this box was, I don't drink, so this is weird to me, 50% Cabernet Sauvignon and 50% Merlot. Is that strange?
I have no idea.
I mean, I think wine is usually one variety.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I thought that was a very brilliant way of doing the pairing.
Cool. I'm done with good stuff. You got any more?
I don't. So I have just one, and this is from a story in Jezebel by Maria Sherman, and it's about how influencers have been scamming their employers. Last year, The Atlantic published a story about influencers with moderate followings who managed to take themselves on lavish vacations, and they presented their holidays as paid promotions through a series of elaborate photos and hashtags, the hashtag ad. And they did that to attract brands and hope that they'd be included in more paid vacations in the future. Often that worked. So marketers spend, this blows my mind, approximately $8.5 billion a year on influencers, and that number is likely to reach $11.5 billion next year. And so the Business of Fashion came up with those numbers, and The check and the University of Baltimore also found that fake influencers with bot followers are going to cost advertisers $1.3 billion this year. So there's a new study from the University of Baltimore and Check, which is a cybersecurity company, and it was reported in the Business of Fashion. They said fake influencers, those who've purchased their bot followers to make it look like they're mega influencers, are on the rise. And the study says that, and I think a lot of us knew this, $49 buys you 1,000 YouTube followers, $34 buys you 1,000 Facebook follows, and the rate is cheaper on Instagram, very convenient for Instagram influencers, a mere $16 for 1,000 followers. So Roberto Cavaraz, who's a University of Baltimore economist, said he surveyed 10,000 influencers and he found that 25% of their followers were bots. And he said that 50% of engagement levels on sponsored content is absolutely fake. And that's just crazy. But the article points out it's easy to spot the fakes. If an Instagram influencer has more likes on a post than they do views, it's probably bots liking the post. If there's limited engagement but thousands of followers, it's probably bots. If there's a remarkably consistent number of likes and comments on every image instead of regular human fluctuation, it's bots. So, buyer beware.
So I'm confused. How are influencers scamming their employers?
Right. In other words, the brands that employ them are thinking that they have these millions of followers when in fact they bought them.
Got it. That's a misleading headline. It's like I was thinking
that they had jobs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know people who consider themselves influencers who have a job. They go on vacations and set themselves up as being these. Yeah. So okay.
Okay, my bad.
Got it. No. So mine is I call bullshit on this gimmick. I think this is from CNN's Donnie Sullivan, who reports that Democratic Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard is suing Google because she claims the company is being biased against her. The company Google suspended her she's running for president.
One of the many.
Google suspended her campaign, Google ad account. Following the last presidential debate. So the campaign is alleging that Google, quote, used its control over online political speech to silence, end quote, the candidate, and said the campaign is their inability to run Google ads was they lost out on campaign donations as a result. So after the first Democratic debate last month, Google released data that showed that Gabbard was the most searched for candidate during the first debate. And to take advantage of the momentum, the suit alleges the campaign sought to buy Google ads as a way to reach out directly to people. And then on June 28, 2 days after the debate, Google suspended Tulsi's Google AdWords account without warning, the suit alleges. Responding to the suit, Google spokeswoman Riva Schwito said in a statement that the company has automated systems that flag unusual activity on advertisers' accounts, including large spending changes, in order to prevent fraud and protect our customers. That's been well known for years that Google has that. Quote, in this case, our system flagged a suspension and the account was reinstated shortly thereafter. We are proud to offer ad products, blah, blah, blah. Gabbard's campaign alleges, though, that Google or someone at Google didn't want Americans to hear Tulsi Gabbard's speech, so it silenced her. The campaign also alleges that Google's email platform, Gmail, sends emails from the Gabbard campaign to spam folders, quote, at a disproportionately high rate. Evidence is not included in the suit, but this is bullshit. This is a way for her to gain earned media, which she's doing, but so if people can't find your own website without search ads, and you're running for president, then you're doing something wrong, because your website is not showing up. If you need to buy ads, your website is not showing up. And all of a sudden it dawns on you, maybe we should buy some ads. So you open up a Google ad account and spend a ton of money. That's probably going to flag Google into what's going on here. 3, political campaigns are notorious for spamming people through email. So it's not surprising at all that a lot of your email would end up in the spam button, because a lot of it is spam. So this is just bullshit. Also, Gabbard is apparently Russia's favorite Democrat, because there's a reporting earlier that there's some Russian activity around promoting her campaign. So anyway, BS all the way through. I think that's all I got to say about that.
I have just one quick thing to say, and that is that when Google's algorithm flags something, quickly is an overstatement, because it can take them up to 3 weeks to fix something that is incorrectly flagged. So anyway, yes, that does sound like bullshit, but Google's not entirely without blame. Let's put it that way.
In this case, I would say that she got favorable treatment, because they reinstated her account so quickly.
Yeah, and yes, you're right to call bullshit on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so does that bring us to shiny objects?
It does.
So my shiny object is an app that turns your plant into a pet. It's from My Modern Met, and you can make your house plant a pet that will tell you its needs. It's created by Vivian Mueller of Moo Design, and it's called the Luau Smart Planter, and your plant will show you 15 animated emotions based on how it's feeling. So sensors within the planter that you put your plant in trigger the emotion animation after they measure the moisture in the soil, the light exposure, the temperature. So the planter is connected to an app where you can select the kind of plant or customize your settings, and then they transform your plant into basically a pet. So 6 of the animations are directly related to the plant's health, like light exposure isn't enough, a vampire emotion will appear. If you forget to water it, a thirsty animation takes over. It can even catch a cold or a fever depending on the temperature, and when all is well, it will smile. And it goes to sleep and it wakes up when it detects movement, and then it follows you around with its eyes.
I am Groot.
I have in my house, I have probably 40 plants, some of which are 40 years old. So I'm big into plants. So this one tickles me, but I like to think I know how my plants feel.
So is it named Groot?
No, it's not named Groot. It's named Luau.
Okay. Should be named Groot.
Well, sorry.
All right. So we've been talking about AI. Let's talk some more about AI. This is from James Vincent of The Verge reports on this app. It's machine learning applied to programming. So there's a new add-on app called Deep Tab 9, and it is a coding auto completer. And so programmers can install it as an add-on to their editor of choice. And so when they start writing, it suggests how to continue by offering small chunks of code at a time. It's kind of like a Gmail Smart Compose feature, but for programmers. It was created by a guy named Jacob Jackson. He's a computer science undergrad at the University of Waterloo. And it is trained on 2 million files from GitHub, the coding repository, GitHub. It finds patterns in the data and then suggests what's likely to appear next based on that big, huge data set. It supports some 22 different coding languages. Among the languages are Python, JavaScript, Java, C and C++, PHP, Ruby, SQL, HTML, CSS. Right now you can get a license for Tab 9. It costs $49 for personal use or $99 for business use. And individuals you have to sign up for Deep 9's beta to get access to the new deep learning features. And Jackson justifies the price like this. Tab 9 will save you at least 1 second per minute. If you value your time at above $1.40 per hour, it will pay for itself in less than a year. That's great. So there you go.
Have you tried it?
I haven't tried it yet, no.
I mean, the whole issue of coding is like one little thing can screw up everything. One little comma in the wrong place can screw up everything. So I wonder if it equally so finds the errors. Wouldn't that be a good thing?
So he does say that you need to keep an eye on it, but it is amazingly accurate from the people that were interviewed for this article. The other programs that are interviewed for this article have tried it. So say it's amazingly accurate compared to other tools that they've used. The other tools that they use learn as you go, so they learn based on your own use. And so with this tool, because it's already been trained on this huge data set from GitHub, out of the box, it's accurate and it's effective rather than having to learn as you use it.
There goes another career. My political one basically started the show off. I think you have another political story.
I do. This is a too long must read one from the New York Times. Is Kevin Roose, called, the title of it is The Making of a YouTube Radical. It's a good read to understand how vulnerable people can become radicalized by watching YouTube videos. But also it's a good read to understand YouTube's recommendation algorithm. So the article is mainly a feature focus on one guy in particular who got sucked into YouTube's far right videos and white nationalist videos and got pulled into that, and how he kind of came out of it. And one of the ways that he came out of it was he came across some left-winger videos that were counteracting what he was seeing in the right-wing YouTube sphere. So they were contradicting and providing evidence that contradicted the right-wing videos. And the left-wingers were Natalie Wynn, cited in the article, were Natalie Wynn and Stephen Bunnell, who are part of a group of YouTubers that call themselves BreadTube. Their specific objective is to provide a counterweight to the right-wing YouTube. And the tactic that they use is they are basically algorithm hacking or hijacking. They by talking about many of the same topics that the far right creators do, and sometimes responding directly to their videos, these left-wing YouTubers get their videos recommended to the same audience. So it's a way of harnessing what the right-wingers are already doing by talking about the same topics and then getting a recommendation from YouTube, so that people who are seeing these right-wing videos are also getting a taste of what the opposite side is talking about. It's interesting simply as how YouTube works.
Well, I read that article and it really was fascinating, but isn't it about less than a year ago that YouTube started promising that its algorithm was going to show alternate views when it had videos on a topic?
Well, yeah, one of the things that they started doing is for conspiracy-related topics, like the moon landing, for example. People who don't believe the moon landed, or flat earthers who believe the Earth is flat, which, believe it or not, people do believe that. They in the description of those videos, they have like links to Wikipedia and a blurb that says, this actually happened. The moon was we actually did land on the moon, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the things that YouTube is doing to.
Yeah, it's an article that really you learn a lot when you read it. That's for sure. So that brings us to your daily numbers. Yeah.
It does. So this is TikTok's the big thing these days, the new hotness. So some TikTok data on the demographics, age and income of TikTok users. And I'm going to pull this up to my other screen so I can actually read it. And here we go. So not surprisingly, when a new social media platform comes along, it usually is dominated by youth, and TikTok is no exception. 18 to 24-year-olds make up 25.8% of the users. 25 to 34-year-olds, 24.5% of this is I read that wrong. The U.S. adult users 25.8% of U.S. adult users who use TikTok are 18 to 24%. 24 years old. I'm mangling this. Anyway, household income. This one is interesting. 37% or 100,000 K or more. So we'll put a link to this chart on the show notes so people can take a look at it yourself rather than me mangling it. But TikTok is interesting. It's also we talked about whether things are Russian or Chinese. TikTok was made by a Chinese company, so you got that going for you as well.
I always wonder about the income numbers because I think people fudge those quite a lot. When they're asked, what's your household income? Why would you say I make $20,000 when one of the options is $200,000? So I don't know how accurate any of those numbers are when you're self-appointed, but those are definitely interesting numbers. So that brings us to the end of episode 277 of the Beyond Social Media Show. You want to find us? You just search Beyond Social Media Show, and you'll find us on all our platforms. You will find links to everything we discussed here today on BeyondSocialMediaShow.com/277. And so I'm here with David Erickson, who is on Twitter as D Erickson, on Instagram as DE Erickson. He's on YouTube as eStrategy, and his wonderful blog is eStrategyblog.com, e-strategyblog.com. I'm BL Ochman. I'm on Twitter as What's Next. I blog at What's Next Blog, YouTube What's Next Blog. My business site is blochman.com, and the show, BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, where you'll find everything we talked about in all of our episodes. And you can follow us on Twitter at BS Media Show. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.